Well, 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 if it isn't another Disney live action remake, I believe to my core that Disney live action remakes are a waste of time. And going into this movie, I did not want to like it. I was coming off of being burned by Pinocchio, Peter Pan and Wendy. Even I'll go back further, Mulan. All these movies were a waste of my time because they were all movies that I loved as a kid, that we all loved as kids. And it just felt like a cash grab to me. Hey, let's just remake those same movies, throw in some live action, throw in some cheap visual effects, and call it a remake. But what I feel like, it takes the magic out of what makes those movies great. And if I were watching those movies for the very first time as a kid, I don't feel like you would be as inspired. So they dug back into the archive, found the movie that everybody loves, The Little Mermaid. And The Little Mermaid, to me, isn't one of my favorites. In the segment earlier where I did my top 10 influential films from Disney, I didn't put Little Mermaid on there. It didn't really speak to me as a kid. I also didn't put Aladdin on there. Those movies were two greats that a lot of people enjoyed. There just wasn't anything about their story that resonated with me. So going into this one, I decided not to rewatch The Little Mermaid because I made that mistake before going into a remake. I wanted to watch that and then judge it based on the original movie. But they just end up making the exact same movie, and I didn't want to watch the same movie twice when it's not my favorite movie. So that is where I'm coming at you with this review. I did not want to like this movie, but I think it's hard to deny the magic of The Little Mermaid because at its core, it's a really good story. And going into this, I do enjoy the soundtrack. I have some jams on there, and I feel like there are things in this movie that benefited from live action, but also that hurt it. But when you outweigh the two, there were a lot more benefits. But let's get into what we all know that this movie is about. It follows the original story, pretty much the entire thing. You got a young mermaid named Ariel. She is the youngest daughter of King Triton. She is infatuated with everything that's going on above her outside of the ocean and obsessed with humans. And King Triton is trying to get her to stop talking about humans, stop exploring these waters, and just leave them alone. But all she wants to do is be a part of their world, go up there and experience what it's like to be outside of the ocean. So she makes a deal with the evil Ursula, who takes away her voice, gives her legs, and allows her to go find this Prince Eric, who she had rescued early on in the movie. But of course, because it's a Disney movie, they have to throw in the twist there. She only has 3 days to get a kiss from Prince Eric, and it has to come from true love. Otherwise, she'll turn right back into a mermaid and then be the sole property of Ursula. Now, the thing I really wanted to judge this movie on was the look of it. I just watched Peter Pan and Wendy, and that movie looked Disney Plus quality. It looked like a bunch of cheap visual effects. So I wanted to feel inside this movie and get the feeling that, okay, this actually deserves the big screen. And the underwater world was pretty magical, but I think what really won me over visually was everything that happened at sea on the ships. I thought that looked really great. It reminded me of Pirates of the Caribbean. So I thought that was a great opening sequence whenever the boat catches on fire and Ariel has to save Prince Eric. I was into that. It gave me that feeling of excitement. Now, where the live action really hurt this movie was with all the sea creatures. And Sebastian, even though he was funny, Daveed Diggs did a really great job at voicing that character. There was just so much disconnect. So even though the voice acting was pretty good, it just felt like I was listening to a track and trying to associate it with this character. Flounder was all out terrifying. He looked like something from my nightmare. And every time that Flounder came on screen, he looked like he was in pain to me. With his eyes, Flounder was telling me, "Every moment I live is agony. Please kill me." That is the visual I had while looking at Flounder. So I feel like they almost should have gone full Roger Rabbit and just did a 2D animation on Flounder and on Sebastian. And the big thing about Disney is the tie-in with merchandise. Essentially, every Disney movie is just a commercial to get you to go to Disney World, Disneyland, to get you to buy all the merch that goes along with a movie. If I was a kid going into watching this version of The Little Mermaid, I would only want things with Ariel. I wouldn't want anything with Flounder or Sebastian because it's not really visually appealing. I don't want a Flounder notebook. So if anything, it's going to make Halle Bailey and the image of her as Ariel be the biggest takeaway from this movie, and I think that is great. but all the other characters just fall completely flat to the point where it is pretty distracting. And forgive me, I know I mess up her name again. It's Halle Bailey, but I get it so confused with Halle Berry. It'd be like if there was another A-list actor named Brent Pitt, I would get those two confused too. Sorry. The other thing that live action made better in this movie was the soundtrack. It really brought all the songs to life, being able to see the characters singing it loud, seeing it come out of their mouth. That added a whole other level to it that I felt like the songs in this version resonated with me a little bit more. Although I do wonder what everybody else does when this one character just goes and starts singing and doesn't stop. Do they all just like float there and be like, all right, she's going to keep singing, she's going to keep going? And I also realized how much Sebastian is trying to brainwash Ariel with Under the Sea. And I did pick up on a lot more themes now. I think watching this movie as an adult, you see that he is just trying to keep her in the sea, trying to get her to buy into the fact that you have everything you need here. You don't need to go exploring. You don't need to go experience everything in the world. Stay at home or you belong. And as I get older, I do grasp on to these themes a little bit more. I think it probably would have resonated with me more if I had kids. And I can kind of see the shift that more people are probably having going to see this movie. The movie we remember as a kid, you probably identified with Ariel, of wanting to go and find your prince and wanting to go against what your parents say to chase the things in life that you want, chase love, chase new adventures. It's kind of like what a teenager would experience when they're wanting to go to college. As kids, we saw that perspective. And now as the ones taking our kids now as adults and getting them to watch this movie, we kind of see it from King Triton's side. Hey, I don't want my kids to go meet up with some random dude she just saved and go hang out with the humans and put herself in danger. So it's like almost going full circle and going from one character's perspective to another character's perspective. But I think who really stole the show in this movie was Melissa McCarthy as Ursula. Perfectly cast, and she played the character so well. And I feel like in live action, you really get that grasp of the evilness of Ursula through these new visuals. I love the look of her tentacles and her entire world every time she was on screen. That was my favorite moment. They could probably do a spin-off movie just following the life of Ursula, think Joker, but Disney, and dive into her villain origin story. And I always just love the dark side of old Disney stories. And I feel like her as Ursula really drove this movie home. I also love Javier Bardem as King Triton. Anton Sugar himself from No Country for Old Men. Ever since that movie, he kind of has a lifetime pass for me that I will watch anything he does. But he is really great in a regal, in like a king role. So I thought he did a really great job as Ariel's dad. When it came to Prince Eric, I think there was a lot to be desired. He wasn't my Prince Eric. He kind of looked like an AI-generated Ryan Gosling. Part of me had to remember that this is a movie made for kids because I did question their chemistry a little bit. But I realized that you can't really make it full-on love story, show all these things because it's kids watching it. That would have been an entirely different movie that I wanted, apparently. That's probably the Little Mermaid that you would buy in the alley, and it's on like an old burned DVD. So that's an entirely different movie that I wanted. I had to get back into reality and think, oh, wait, no, this is for kids. But I do have to compare it to the original because I don't think if you started with this movie, it would create that same lasting fandom. I think you'll probably forget about this movie in 6 months. Another year, you're not really going to want to revisit it. It's cool now, but it's not going to have the same kind of longevity as a movie from the 80s. But they proved to me that they can make a good adaptation and add a little value and not just feel like they're going through all the motions, checking all the boxes, and just making exactly what exists on animation without making it better. Pinocchio, they didn't make it better. Peter Pan and Wendy, they didn't make it better. Mulan, they really ruined that story. So for me, a Disney remake has a ceiling of about a 4. The Lion King got that. Aladdin got that. Even though Cruella wasn't a true remake, I think that was a great live action reimagination and origin story. So they could probably do a similar movie like Cruella with Ursula. I just found it was so hard for me to fully buy into it because of Flounder and Sebastian. But they are such a big part of the movie and a big part of the story that I really couldn't look past that. So it just made the movie less enjoyable for me. So for The Little Mermaid, I give it 3.5 out of 5 forks. The next Disney live action movies we have to look forward to, we have Snow White coming out on March 22nd, 2024, and then Mufasa the Lion King also in 2024 on July 5th, which will be the prequel to the live action version from 2019. Don't mess with my Lion King anymore. Just don't mess it up.